Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Royal Bafokeng Platinum CEO Steve Phiri has emphasized the need for producers to invest in the marketing of platinum and ensure that the metal does not continue to be demonized by anti-diesel hype. Martin Creamer joins me in studio to delve into the need for greater promotion of the embattled precious metal. Hi Martin.
Hi Tracy.
How does RB Plat suggest going about improving the effectiveness with which platinum is being marketed?
You know, the very first interview I had, it must have been 30 years ago, maybe even more, on platinum. It was in the days when we had Johannesburg Consolidated Investments. They were part of Anglo American and they were in charge of platinum. And the person I spoke to there, a very senior executive, he sat me down and he said, you know, when it comes to platinum, we've really got to market well, because this metal is not consumed. So you've got to keep finding more and more markets for it, because otherwise it comes back as a recycled product, which then competes with mining, particularly, you know, when you don't need it. And then, like 15 years ago, I can remember when we had the first sort of hiccup with platinum at Anglo American Platinum. I can remember the executives calling me aside and saying, no, we're going to go on a very strong marketing drive, because this is a metal that has to be marketed. Now, what has happened in between is that we now see, you know, a black controlled company living right in the platinum belt and coming through with platinum mining as a totally black enterprise. They are seeing the same thing, and Steve Phiri is saying, you know, you've not only got to market, but you've got to market and do more marketing. Now, at the same time, this is being said when things are tough. You can see that when it comes to their replies to analysts, they're not talking about expenditure on marketing. They're having to talk about cutting costs and reviewing their whole operation, because they are in a twin situation where they've got this wonderful Staldrift project going up, and it's going to be a mouth-watering project in terms of margins, even at these low platinum prices. But they also got to live with the south shaft of the Bafokeng Rasamoni platinum mine, the existing money spinner, going out there while you're doing the one project on the other side and using that cash to pay for the project. You've got a north and south shaft of the BRPM mine, as they refer to it, the Bafokeng Rasamoni platinum mine. The north mine pumps wonderfully. The south mine relying a lot on upper group 2 metal, and dwindling Merensky is in a tight spot at the moment, because you know, the Merensky always does better than the UG2. So with the UG2, they're able to pass that on to Sibanya, which is who's taking it, and we know that next door is Impala, where the Bafokeng community also have a big shareholding, the biggest single shareholding, or it used to be. They cut back a bit. But it's interesting that they are seeing marketing as the way to go. Now, they did compliment Anglo American Platinum for the manner in which they've been marketing, because under Cynthia Carroll, who was running Anglo and was chairman of Anglo American Platinum at the time, she decided to take marketing under the company wing, whereas before they used to have consultants doing it for them. And you can see that, particularly with the fuel cell, that they have really been giving extra special acceleration and effort. But I can still remember, you know, going back 15 and more years, where, you know, you would go and see the CEO of the then Amplats, the Anglo American Platinum, and he would rave about PEM cells and fuel cells, and he would say, in 5 years, these are going to really make a big mark. And you'd go 5 years later, and he would say, in 5 years, these are going to, so it shows you how difficult it is. But you could see that at Davos this year, you know, Anglo American teamed up with some of the biggest names in industrial business in the world. And they set up this hydrogen council, which is a very important vehicle, because the more I talk to scientists who are really close, particularly German scientists that I spoke to down at the Indaba, and people close to platinum, they say that Europe is sold on the hydrogen age. So is Japan, sold on this. And you can see people like Robert Friedland over in Canada also giving you fantastic word pictures of what's happening with the fuel cells. So they are seeing marketing now both as on the industrial front and also on the investment front and on the jewelry front as being key to their future and key to the future of platinum, which has become key to South Africa's future, because we've got this fantastic wonder metal and we need to make sure that it slots in without being replaced by other metals and minerals. And to do that, you've got to really get it front of mind to you from the people who use it.
And what is Phiri highlighted as the cause of the decline in demand?
You see, we had this Volkswagen scandal in the United States of America, where they didn't quite take into account the very stringent rules on emissions that had been imposed on diesel cars in a very unfair way in the United States, because you had vested interests in the United States, not wanting Volkswagen to come in, of course, not wanting and playing unfairly. But Volkswagen imagined they could actually negotiate and they could navigate this very difficult space which had really been unreasonably created for them. And they had a situation of, now you see no emissions, now you see emissions, and if you looked in the laboratory, everything looked fine, but as it got onto the road, it flouted the regulations, so they were seen as huge cheats. And then this gave diesel automation a bad name. Now, diesel and platinum always worked hand in hand. The diesel autocatalytic converter has always had platinum in it, never palladium, like the petrol engine, and as they call it, the gasoline engine. It's always had platinum. So they wedded. Now all of a sudden you get this big shock. So diesel, unfairly, becomes demonized. And platinum suffers at the same time. Now we've been saying for a long time, this is too Eurocentric. We're too Eurocentric. And when Volkswagen went into US like it, everyone clapped, because they thought, now we're getting that diesel into the United States, it will have the same, we will lose our Eurocentricity and we'll start spreading around the world. But then they had this big hiccup with Volkswagen, which is still hurting the industry, and you can see the price is not looking good. So, coupled mainly with that, and of course that there's also that bringing onto the market of spent elements, your autocats. People go along, they pick up the autocatalytic converter, it's an old exhaust because the car's been scrapped, and all they do is just chop it and take out 4 ounces. That's far more easy than going underground, a couple of kilometers down and having to break rock like you cannot believe, and then bring that up and process it, and for every ton, you're getting like a tiny ounce. So this is a tough industry to be in, particularly now when the prices are down.
And why does Phiri believe that platinum's market share loss to palladium is short-lived?
Well, you see, they always run to palladium because the price is cheaper. We saw that in, I think it was 1989. I remember sitting in the office with one of the Amplats guys, and suddenly, he went ashen-faced because Ford had decided to move to palladium because they said platinum was too expensive. So it's been happening. It's like goes up and down. What happens is it's like a 3-to-1 mix, because over the years, platinum has been thrifted. That means they go out of their way to make sure that the catalyst works very effectively, but using less and less and less platinum. So you'll get now the same thrifting hasn't been done with palladium because it hasn't been seen as an expensive metal. But all of a sudden now, because the diesel has been demonized, you switch into petrol, then they suddenly take the palladium. Then the price of palladium goes up. But it's like a 3-to-1. You use a lot more palladium than you do platinum. So soon they'll be saying, hey, no, this is too expensive. And then they'll likely swing back to the use of platinum where they can.
And despite local challenges, RB Platt is talking about growth investment while others are talking about survival. How so?
You know, there's so many survival talks at the moment, and to make it worse is the rand started strengthening. You know, people always got some relief in that weak rand, in that their costs were in rands in South Africa and the selling price was in dollars outside the country, and you brought in those dollars and you got a lot more rands. All of a sudden we see a strengthening which is frightening people on top of a low price. So the dollar price, a low dollar price. So when the rand was weaker, the low dollar price used to give you a nice rand price. Now you're not getting that nice rand price. So he's saying that because of their situation, their assets are good. They don't really have to talk survival. I mean, if you look at Lonman's situation, it's more survival talk. But they don't have to talk survival, thank goodness. And on top of that, all the growth that they're getting out of that stale drift 1 has been paid for from cash flow generated by themselves from the BRPM mines, North and South Shaft, with the South Shaft causing a few problems at the moment. But they haven't had to go out and put themselves in debt. They're sitting on a cash pile of 800 million rand. And so he's saying, fortunately, we are still in a growth phase. We're not in a survival phase because of the particular assets which we have here that are very good.
And could you tell us more about the robust funding solutions that the company has in place?
You see, they were pounded by the analysts. The analysts don't believe the story that they're going to be able to do this growth and pay for all the growth in stale drift when they, you've got the strong rand coming along, you've got a low price, you're getting in dollars for your platinum, you've got a problem with your South Shaft, it's over UG2 heavy. So they were incredulous, as analysts often are. They start doing the calculations. And they were saying, what if something goes wrong? You're going to need some funding. But at the same time, they said, look, we're going in for a huge review of our whole business. The idea of cutting costs, and making sure we come down. And we haven't gone to the banks prior to this report that you're hearing now, which we heard this week with the results presentation. We wanted to wait for these results to settle in. Then we will start talking to the banks. So they're looking for a robust solution because they want to get a good deal from the banks, and they want at the same time not to stretch their balance sheet, not to hurt that balance sheet. So it's a balancing act at the moment during a tough period. They do see, going forward, things not being really rosy, but they do believe it will probably be better than they've experienced in the recent past. So they are feeling that they'll go ahead error-free and that they won't have to rely too much on debt, and that they'll continue to finance from cash, and that will put them, in a strong position.
Thanks, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Tracy.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on the South African mining industry.